Mortal Kombat 2. More characters, 3 times more images, more secret moves.
The coolest thing about Mortal Kombat 2 is I didn't know it was coming out.
I knew it was probably being worked on, and there was just rumors floating about.
I never even thought of a sequel. I was so fixated on the first game.
I had no idea. Nobody at my school had mentioned it.
It wasn't until I walked into it was an arcade called Uncle Bob's, and there it was already.
The first thing I saw was somebody slicing someone in half with Kung Lao's hat. And I remember being like, what? There's a Mortal Kombat 2, and it is crazy!
A friend came running into band class one day and said, oh, there's a Mortal Kombat 2. I saw this new character. He's a monster. He's got knives for hands.
Baraka was the first character I picked. I kept pumping quarters in. It was so exciting to see the advancements and the new characters.
There is a specific reason that Mortal Kombat 2 is my absolute favorite game in the entire series. And that is because of Katana's easiest in the world fatality. Walk up to the person and hit block, 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 high kick.
Katana wins.
I was immediately a master of her.
Fatality.
I still main Melina whenever I play MK2, and I can do that back, down, low punch to do that kind of roll thing, and then forward, low kick to do that kind of teleport from the ceiling kind of thing.
It looked bigger, it looked better, it looked badder, it was bloodier. The animation was more fluid. It looked like a comic book, and that's not something I ever thought I would ever want from a Mortal Kombat game.
Sub-Zero wins. Fatality.
But like I said, I never even dreamed of a sequel. One day there it was, and it was fantastic.
The favorite characters are back, so you have kind of that step into it. The excitement was just incredible.
I remember seeing Mortal Kombat 2. It was the level that has it Shao Kahn, the big bad guy, who had the people chained up on the pedestals in the background. You were fighting your opponent, but there was the sense of storytelling in the actual level design, and that was one of the first times I had seen that and been like, that's really cool and that's really, really clever.
And I still bought the Game Boy versions, just because Game Boy was the system I played the most. And what's interesting is that Mortal Kombat 2 for the Game Boy is fantastic. It is an amazing fighting game port. It's an amazing fighting game for a portable system with no power.
I played a ton of Mortal Kombat 2 on Super Nintendo. I would have friends over. My living room kind of became a mini arcade. All the blood and gore was there, and it was fantastic.
Fatality.
It felt pretty darn close to arcade perfect. So haha, that time Nintendo came out on top.
Raiden wins. Fatality.
I got put on as the lead on the second one, and that's where we really made the right decisions, which was nice. The idea was to just convert the code line by line and build the multi-processing system so it would work on the Super Nintendo, which of course is a different language of assembly.
Finish it.
We, I think, started, is November or somewhere like that in 1993. We had to be done in July. And so we didn't show them anything until April. We just got our first pass of Mortal Kombat 2 for the SNES. Wow. The entire video department here at Midway is absolutely blown away at how well you have matched the feel of our arcade version on Mortal Kombat 2. We can already see that this will be the version to have, as the graphics and gameplay are awesome. So we just continued down that road, got the game done on time, and it scored really high. I have some magazines, you know, they have 5 stars, and it was a nice project. I did think that it was done a lot better. They could ship a game that was more like the arcade, as much as we could get it anyway. Put the rating on it and not have to have green blood.
Johnny Cage wins.
I don't know if the Genesis guys would debate me, but I felt like it was the de facto version for the at least Mortal Kombat 2.
And the ongoing debate that still sort of seems to rage on up to the present day, like between the SNES version and the Genesis version. SNES version is perceived as being like the winner, it's the better version. And that's like, I think, largely because it's like more complete version. The reason the SNES one has got more stuff than ours, because they're like both made for the same size sort of cartridge, is that it's a lower resolution system, right? So therefore their art assets are smaller, and all the little sort of size differences like add up.
Jax wins.
You end up with space for fatality.
Fatality.
The fact that the speech samples are missing, that's the thing that like kind of stands out to me. The way I got the Genesis version is like a little bit sort of convoluted. Basically, Paul had done the first one, Paul were offered the second one, and they offered it to Paul, which is like kind of logical sort of thing to do, and Paul turned it down.
Idiocy, stupidity. At the time I was offered it, I did think that actually MK2 wouldn't ever come out, that it would be banned. There was a bunch of people in the studio kind of talking about violence and talking about this game, and so I didn't particularly want to spend all that effort on a game that then got banned. Hindsight's a wonderful thing, isn't it?
So then they offered it to me, right? And I'd never done any Mega Drive stuff before. They used this thing that is like a cooperative multitasking system. It's the first time I'd ever like kind of come across it, and like once I like kind of understood it properly, I loved it. I thought it was fantastic. Basically, I ripped it off. But every game that I wrote subsequent to that, I used that system. Everybody was like kind of happy with the version that I did, and that was no bad thing. I mean, it's just like a really good game, you know. Hard to mess it up.
MK2 was great and stuff, but I really didn't want us to just do the same game with prettier graphics.
We were always trying to one-up what we did. Like, obviously, MK1, we had the, you'd fall into the pit. And that was great. It was always asking the question, well, what can we do next?
Reptile wins.
MK3 was like, now we're going to knock you upwards. Now we're going to knock you downwards.
Right.
Certainly the visual qualities of the backgrounds changed over time quite significantly.
As the story took it, MK3 was based more on Earth.
.3D technology played a part.
I had been learning how to sculpt things in 3D. I created what became the subway, and I showed Ed, I'm like, hey, we could actually just, instead of like going out and videoing stuff and getting things out of books or whatever, or even just drawing them, we could actually build them in 3D with correct lighting and stuff like that. And it could even help us do the parallaxing if we wanted it to. He was like, yeah, that's pretty cool. Let's go that route. So a lot of the backgrounds, I would kind of build them in 3D, and then Tony would take that and draw on it and dress them up, make them look better from there.
There's a look that's missing. It looked kind of too plastic and toyish and simple, but it was great for a starting point. We would always touch up over it. That would give it its clean look. And one of the backgrounds that we started with 3D was the Soul Chamber. I always like a star in the background, and I just coined the name Sonato for the soul inside the mouth, and I drew that in deluxe paint, frame by frame.
I did a drawing of this in 3D just so you can make it any size and any lighting, any angle you wanted. This is it's just ornamental, it's just like kind of a really neat background thing.
We would always in Mortal Kombat put in names, our names, hidden somewhere sometimes. And mainly it was the graveyard.
I'm sure that I probably designed in 3D the tombstones, and Tony probably drew in our names. A lot of that grass, and maybe even putting the background in there, like the sky and stuff. Dave Mikicic joined our team, and he knew about Photoshop. We hadn't heard about Photoshop. Photoshop was new. He took that city scene with Shao Kahn's fortress in the distance. What I gave was kind of stale. It was very stark. He added like haze and all kinds of cool atmosphere with Photoshop. We started using Photoshop a lot after that.
Once we get the digitized image, it's a lot like painting. And right now we're going through a process where we sort of filter the images through. We'll grab the image and Steve Moran will start and do some Photoshop on the guy, and then we'll hand him over to Tony, who does some touch-up. And then it gets passed over to me, and then I do some of this more detailed touch-up, and then I give it back to Steve, and he kind of separates the different colors and creates the different palettes, and then we give it back to Tony, and he does the final touch-up and stuff and gets it ready for the game. I'm working on a friendship move for Shigoro character, and that's her tentative name. She didn't have a real name yet. The move is she's got to turn around and she's going to pull out sort of plates and little sticks, and she spins the plates on the sticks and balances them on her hand, and she does this with her back towards you.
I remember wanting the characters to be a little bit smaller. The reason I wanted them a little smaller was so they can have more lateral motion to run.
I remember having that conversation in Ed's office because my first reaction was, wait, we should be getting bigger. It's
right.
Like, what do you mean smaller, The hardware, we can push more stuff, and we should be making them bigger. But it didn't last long. I think once the run button was in, you saw right away the value of the sprinting.
Round one, fight.
I wanted it to be more aggressive. I always felt like our walking was a bit slow, and that really was pushing for the run.
To me, it feels weird when I play MK2. I feel like I'm in molasses. I was like, come on! I just want to move faster. So.
We really loved to see players doing combos, but some players just couldn't uppercut somebody and then jump and then, you know, juggle them and do all these kind of. So we wanted something that was a little bit more mechanical, right? Like anybody can do 1-1-2 or something like that. Right, the whole dynamic of the game was just so aggressive. And some people were intimidated by that.
Finish him.
It was somewhat controversial. There was a guy who was a tech in our, you know, like where they would build the games. He was looking at it and he goes, you know, I don't know why you added the run button, you know, I don't know what that. And then, you know, fast forward 3 weeks.
Nightwolf wins.
He actually came by and said, you know, yeah, I don't know what I was thinking, man. That thing was cool.
One day I was in the office at Playboy downtown Chicago, and the phone rang. It was Jack Hager, and he was looking for a couple cheerleaders for this game called NBA Jam. I had no idea how to cheerlead. I said I could, but I had no idea. It was great working with everybody, and then Jack invited me on to the next game, which was Revolution X. We were trying to develop Mistress Helga. He had an idea. He wanted to be like this mistress, you know, in leather, and I said, well, I got some ideas, you know, and I put a black wig on and put my Harley Davidson jacket on and black stretch pants. He added chains and put some labels on it, and he was just like, perfect. And then that is how Mistress Helga developed. That was a blast. And then I just started working with Midway, you know, game after game, and they said that they needed a new Sonya and asked me if I'd like to do it, and I said, absolutely.
I think John one time was just walking by me in a hallway. He's like, hey, Sal, you feel like being a character for, you know, Mortal Kombat 3? And I'm like, yeah, sure.
By the time we got to Mortal Kombat 3, we had a complete blue screen studio, professional lighting, professional cameras, a green room, dressing rooms for the actors.
Hey, get out of here, man.
Jack Hager put that all together. It was phenomenal.
Each capture session was 2 to 3 days. John and I would do the lighting, We always consistently had what we called a money light that just was a rim light. And we'd spend a lot of time doing that because there was no going back with the lighting.
Whenever you're making a game, you would record the data and then immediately check it in the tool to make sure the lighting was right, to make sure the size was right and whatever.
The camera takes in the signal into our beta camera recorder, and we also run a signal into our PC. This is where we do the actual grabbing of frames to be digitized. We're able to click through frame by frame, delete the frames we don't want, keep the frames that we do like.
Once you had all that set, then you could start kind of rolling into the actual moves and then forget about the technical side of it.
When we started filming a character, we'd get into work probably roughly around 10 o'clock, and usually the whole filming process takes, all day.
On average day of a 14-hour shoot, we came in, we got into makeup. It didn't take too long for Sonya. She doesn't wear much.
And then we have a list, a huge list of animations, kicks, punches, uppercuts, and then the special moves and stuff. Capturing every single frame of them performing these moves.
Neither Sal nor Carrie had martial arts
background,
right? They were super athletic.
I watched a lot of martial arts. I watched a lot of, Bruce Lee and Jackie Chan, and I studied like the theatrics of martial arts, but I didn't have the discipline.
Right, and my background was just gymnastics and boxing.
Sonya Blade, there she is. Yeah.
A little bit of WWF wrestling.
Oh, jeez. That's no way to begin a demonstration. Well, I think Sonya is in a little trouble here. She's being tied to a dog.
So I was more into the falls and the suplexes and that kind of stuff.
There was this tomboyish quality to her that doesn't come across when you see her.
Yeah.
And then once you work with her, you realize, holy crap, she's going to do everything we need and more.
Yeah.
Probably the hardest thing about doing any of the moves is you had to start and finish in the same spot.
And that was the main thing, is getting back into idle. They wanted all the follow through. They wanted all the momentum, but they wanted all that power to come all the way through, But then you had to always get back into idle pose, and that was the main thing.
I remember I added like the scrunchie in my ponytail, and we always tried to work together with costuming. They would have like the basic costume, and then they would let the actors kind of bring in a little bit of detail.
Helping John with creating costumes was like this art project. We would go to sports stores and buy like hockey gear and army surplus stores and just buy pieces and hey, that works and put some duct tape on it. And Home Depot has this cool rubber piece that we could use for Sector's helmet. And it was very do-it-yourself.
But the helmet itself was so back heavy that literally everything that I did was it was pulling my head back. And the mask, by doing this, the mask looked like it was looking forward. So I was always kind of doing this with everything, with all my actions.
We wanted it as compact as possible because we didn't want him to look out of proportion.
Yeah.
And so the helmet is really tight.
It must have been torture for, 8 hours or whatever.
That's where your neck problem.
That's why my neck hurts so much.
I think with the Sonya costume, he was just trying to keep everything in when you're bouncing around.
I think my favorite Sal character is still Nightwolf. He just turns into that guy and he extends his chin, he almost transforms.
Sal, he had no fear. He would just go over the top. He would just insist on trying a move that we were afraid he'd get hurt from.
Throwing himself around.
Yeah, just so committed to it.
You need to look like you're taking pain. You snap your head back, really kind of throw yourself over. And when you fell, you had to look like you were getting hurt. So I would throw myself twisting around as much as I could at a time. Many times I would land, on my neck wrong, land on my back wrong.
Sal would often hurt himself, or not often, but he has a history of hurting himself, trying to get the best performance.
It didn't matter if we were working or if the camera was on or whatever. I just throw my hand out and put my hand on the back of his neck and go wham!
Smack my face into
and
it.
he'd fall back onto the floor, and everybody is like, oh my God.
And in fact, I think her and Sal would have contests with each other to see who can do what better. It was fun watching those two go at it.
They're still good friends to this day.
So if I was going to hit you hard, I would.
Yeah.
See.
Yeah, so it's not the hardness, it's the location.
Reactions, all just in reaction.